In this video, we are talking about the AEW new TV deal and what Tony Khan has to say about that. Also, we're talking about WWE canceled plans, and very interestingly enough, I have a video here that I'm going to be showing you guys. Natalya seems to break character. Not sure what caused this, but this was at a live event. All the timestamps will be in the description down below. Make sure you guys subscribe if you guys want more videos. Really quick, let's talk about John Cena. Brian Alvarez from Wrestling Observer Live has mentioned that John Cena will not be at SummerSlam due to the filming of Peacemaker 2, which will then be distributed on HBO Max. Honestly, I'm not mad about this whatsoever. I think a lot of people know that John Cena will be back. John Cena is, in fact, a WWE guy, but just like The Rock, Hollywood commitments will take precedence over WWE, and rightfully so. John Cena has worked incredibly hard in Hollywood, and now that he's actually being pretty successful with it, it makes sense for him to not be at SummerSlam. Also, just to, throw in some fantasy booking here, I have an idea. Austin Theory could cash in Money in the Bank. He can win the championship. John Cena can return anytime he wants. He can eventually go over Austin Theory, win the world championship, and then if I'm WWE when Cody Rhodes is back, Cody Rhodes can take the belt from John Cena. I think it makes sense for those three to be the next world champions. Theory gets the big run. And then, of course, Theory losing to John Cena makes sense storyline-wise. And then, of course, it doesn't hurt Austin Theory to lose to John Cena because he is the mega star. And then John Cena eventually passing the torch, I guess, to Cody Rhodes can make a lot of sense too. I think, nonetheless, WWE is in a very good spot right now. When I look at their situation, obviously it didn't help that Roman Reigns has held those belts forever and they haven't been grooming stars. But now that a young and up and comer has Money in the Bank briefcase, I think it adds a layer of excitement to what can happen. And the cool thing is, Theory is a heel. He is a bad guy. So him losing to John Cena ultimately is the biggest compliment you can get. And John Cena makes history by getting his 17th World Championship belt. So if I'm fantasy booking, that's the way I would do it. John Cena not being at SummerSlam is not a big deal to me. I think there's always going to be SummerSlam and WrestleMania will always be major pay-per-views. I think if John Cena is going to return at a pay-per-view, hopefully it would be at a pay-per-view that is not as popular or maybe not as exciting. Maybe it's not one of the big four, because that way John Cena's involvement in that pay-per-view will just ultimately make it feel special anyways. So ultimately, I'm not too pissed about that. But guys, I do want to turn our attention to this video clip from a WWE live event this past weekend. We're going to show it to you guys now. This is very interesting. I'm going to share my opinions right after. So really strange footage right there. As you guys can tell, when Natalya got pinned, she immediately got up and pointed and said something to Liv Morgan. Obviously, social media is having a field day with this. A lot of people really don't know what is expected to happen here or what is going on here. Nobody really understands the depth of this. Now, I feel like this was just something to get people talking. Honestly, when you look at the WWE SmackDown women's division, the only two people that have really been relevant in this division recently is Natalya and Ronda Rousey, and I think Natalya is staying relevant with this clip, with this footage. Obviously, WWE has a plethora of new women on that SmackDown women's brand, and then of course we know that Sasha Banks and Naomi are gone. So I think this is just another way for Natalya to be talked about. Social media is obviously talking about it. This clip is being shared everywhere. There's tons of likes, tons of comments. But what is actually happening here? Is it legit? Is it beef? Like, nobody really knows, which is what makes it so funny. But of course, Natalya has always had a great reputation. She has always been considered professional inside and outside of the ring. So if something did go wrong, what actually went wrong? Obviously she no-sells the finish, and it's a WWE live event. It's not on television. Had it been on TV, I think it would have been a little bit more interesting. But I also want to say too, WWE's live events, they are very up and down. Some of them are very successful. Some of them really aren't. This crowd in Sacramento was a near sellout crowd. So of course, the idea of things like this happening at live events will get people to go in because people want to go watch things that shouldn't happen. So I think the more that WWE stars do this, I think people will actually be interested in going to a WWE event because it makes it feel must see. You never know if somebody's going to break script. You never know if a championship is going to change hands. And live events right now, it's a good experience because of the lockdown, after the lockdowns and COVID and everything. So I think this is just a really interesting situation. I thought it was kind of funny. Who knows what's legit about it? Who knows if it's, if she's just shooting, working, whatever it may be. But nonetheless, it is what it is. Now I want to turn our attention, guys, to our final story of today's video, and that is the AEW TV deal. Now, Tony Khan has been very vocal about his ratings. He talks about it all the time on Twitter, and while some people definitely get tired of it, and while some people definitely become critical of it, I thought this was very interesting because Warner Media and Discovery, now that they are together, obviously Tony Khan has stressed the real importance of having a good relationship with Discovery. And I mentioned in my previous video about Shark Week and all of these different things. Tony Khan spoke to the New York Post. He says, I think there is still a lot of time for the next rights deal. I do believe our future media rights will be important and frankly, a very large revenue stream for AEW going forward. Whenever our next media deal is, the next one does kick in, it will be historic. We expect it's going to be very well for us based on how strong we've been performing. Now, the reason why I mention this is because obviously Tony Khan is very, very vocal about TV ratings and #1 show on Wednesdays, #1 show on Fridays. And obviously AEW Dynamite and Rampage are on two different playing fields when it comes to their time slots and their length and duration. But what I would like to mention here, and I think it's so incredibly important, is instead of talking about ratings or instead of talking about numbers and key demographic, what I would actually say is take a look at the business habits that Discovery has. And what I mean by this is we know that AEW and Tony Khan specifically has AEW Dynamite and Rampage, and we know that he has Honor Media or whatever it's called, Ring of Honor's, I forget the name of the streaming app. They had it, whatever. But they had the streaming app. He has this tape library, right? We know at this point, going into the next TV rights negotiations, he's going to have a plethora of content. It's going to be a huge amount of content. And I think that is the reason why they're kind of holding off on any sort of streaming deal. I think this is also the same reason why they're kind of holding off on ROH getting a TV deal, because I think what's going to end up happening is Discovery, Warner, they're going to come together and just create one big, massive streaming package deal for the TV rights. And I think basically AEW is going, or Tony Khan is going to sell the rights to AEW and Ring of Honor all together completely to Warner for television distribution. And then I think with that, we will see the inclusion of HBO Max or whatever they end up calling the app when it eventually changes over. However, I think a lot of people are super excited to see what happens here, because with a good TV deal means more money. More money for AEW means they're able to retain more talent, sign more talent, get a little bit more creative with the set designs and presentation of their show. So ultimately, everybody should want AEW to get a massive TV deal. I think they are going to get a massive TV deal. I don't think it's going to be on the same level, billions and billions of dollars like WWE, but I don't think AEW needs that to be successful, and that's what makes this so intriguing and super interesting to watch. So again, pay attention to some of these other business habits that Discovery has, because based on what they're doing with their other products, their other services, their other shows, these other networks, everything that they're doing is basically a good sign for AEW and how they are going to view AEW going forward. Let me know what you guys think down below.